Both of you, welcome again. About me, since beyond that I am a dinosaur, Eric. So, well, I graduated USF in 2010. Okay, so it ain't that bad. It's not that bad. Okay, so 2010. About me is my name is Stacy Volsi. Me and my husband actually started a nonprofit organization back in 2016, and that's how I got started in the nonprofit industry. Hey Larry, so that's how I got started in the nonprofit industry. But in 2019, I got introduced to entrepreneurship. That like I decided, I don't know what bug bit me. I was like, okay, I'm gonna start my own business. And when I say I learned so much, and it's from that experience, that aha moment came to me, and I started learning about, okay, we need to do this for the nonprofit. And we went from filing 990Ns and barely generating anything where we were funding our nonprofit organization to actually getting grants, and our annual revenue shot from under 50 to over 300,000 in a year. So it's like the mindset and understanding of how to generate revenue is really important. And that's why, like, fundraising blueprint, and I talk a lot about generating revenue for nonprofits, because as leaders, we tend to approach nonprofit work as charity work, but we also need to see the leader side of it, or the side where we need to keep this business running. How are we going to pay people, or how are we going to keep the lights on if we don't do the hard stuff? Okay. So I live in Sacramento right now. I used to live in Florida, so a lot of people don't know that, except Eric kind of opened that can of worms earlier during this call. Help nonprofit organizations identify financial opportunities, build capacity, develop strategic plans, help with board engagement and trainings, so they can increase their impact and create sustainable change in their community. So that's a little bit about me. That's long-winded. So definitely reach out if you want to know more about me. Now, before, I know I was talking briefly about that, what it looked like in our nonprofit organization, how minimal donations, it literally what it looked like. It was our family members and friends were donating, like monthly subscriptions, memberships, and us funding our nonprofit to the point where it was, I don't know if you guys are familiar, like the fees you have to pay to like keep the nonprofit alive, like that's 75 for the federal government, or that those were the fees that we kept paying just to keep it afloat, and activities here and there. So when I figured out how to improve operations and structure it properly, that's when there was a strategic plan. That's when we started seeing growth, and yeah, that's when things change. So sponsorships and stepping into a leadership role and really seeing a shift, because that's really what it was. It was a shift in the nonprofit organization, because when you are in a leadership position in a nonprofit organization, you have to make certain decisions and certain moves to ensure that you're generating revenue for the organization. Because as much as it's an unpopular opinion, it is a business. It just has a tax exempt status. So generating revenue is really important. So this is for leaders that want to diversify. So this masterclass is for leaders that want to diversify their organization's funding sources. They want to build stronger, lasting relationship with their donors, and they're looking to improve their grant writing success rate. So the grant writing success rate, we're gonna barely touch on grants today compared to the last masterclass. So if you join the Grant Writing 2.0 Masterclass, we talk a little bit more about grant writing in that masterclass, but today we're not going to talk a lot about it. Now, you can book a complimentary consultation with me if you go on my Stan store, which is stan.store/Stacy Volsi Coaching. And that link I'm going to show it a couple of times during this masterclass. So if you need it again, it'll come up again. Now, one question I have for you, because then considering that I told you at the beginning, this is going to be a very interactive masterclass. The question I have for you, I want everybody to drop in the chat. What is your nonprofit's biggest fundraising challenge? This is a fundraising blueprint masterclass. So the goal here is for you to leave with a better idea how to fundraise for your nonprofit organization a little bit better. So definitely drop in the chat, what is your nonprofit's biggest fundraising challenge? Eric, in your case, like one of the nonprofits, whichever one that you're more into that role, which one do you want to focus on? Just drop the biggest fundraising challenge for that one.
So the one where I have the most direct involvement for the time being is my work with Avenue Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest fundraising challenges for us usually is getting ideas to actually happen. So there are multiple times where I was given the assignment to come up with initiatives for fundraising. I proposed the ideas, but unfortunately, along the channels, I wasn't followed up with to actually put it to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
And normally, when it finally comes to the attention for the backup to happen where it's like, oh, okay, let's actually take the idea he wrote down and let's actually move. It's usually too close to the event by that time, too close to whatever the event it was supposed to fund for, or the opportunity that it was supposed to fund for. It's either right around the corner, um, it's right around the corner, or it's literally about to happen, or there's way too much for it to be accomplished with such little time left. And the problem that happens here is I'm only part-time with them. So typically I work my schedule around organizing for them part-time. However, when I'm giving stuff last minute, especially with my other obligations, it's almost impossible for me to make something happen overnight. So getting the actual ideas, the fundraising ideas, the even the little ones such as raffles, selling paraphernalia, or applying for a grant, usually that comes around way too late by the time we finally sit down and discuss it.
Okay. So can you like sum that down and drop it in the chat? Because then when we do the Q&A, I want to come back, circle back to that. So we can talk about ways to address that you can like leave and just like take with you. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So Halima, I saw lack of resources and limited donors. Those were your biggest fundraising challenges. So lack of resources like for the schools and is that what you're talking about?
Yes. So since I'm the only one like paying out of my pocket, from day one since 2022, and now I have more students. In the beginning, it was less students and only one teacher. And now that I have like three teachers plus a cooker that I pay, and I have to buy the food, the meals, and everything. So like my expenses are a lot more than I expected. So then I have a limited like donors. I do have friends that donate, and my mom helps me from here and there, and I appreciate all their help. But yeah, I want like my resource guide to be wide open where like I can connect to the community, like the masjids, churches. Like in my culture, it's like masjid we call as Muslims. So and other community organizations that help out refugees since these are refugee students. So yeah, that's something I want to look into and go out my way and give out flyers and present myself, the work that I do.
Okay. All right. So same with you. Let's circle back on that in the last 15 minutes. So keep that on top of mind, okay? Because I want to make sure we talk about action steps and things that you need to look at or what we can do to address that and see how we can circumvent that, okay? And Larry, considering I know about your situation a little bit better, let's leave that for the end because we got to talk. Okay. All right. So the fundraising struggle bus stop. I call it the struggle bus because one thing I noticed with with a nonprofit is that if you ask if you go in a room and ask nonprofits what's the issue, all of them they're gonna tell you funding. It's always funding that's the issue that's right in front of them, but they never realize that funding is really not the biggest problem, but that's what they see. So one thing that this is designed to do, the Fundraising Blueprint Masterclass, is to help nonprofits get off the struggle bus. So a few things we're going to talk about is how to stop over relying on single funding source. Now, what I mean by that is like stop over relying on things like grants, donations, because those are not the only ways to generate revenue in a nonprofit. So I want to make that clear, because then a lot of nonprofit organizations, maybe because of things that you heard in the grapevine, and you're like, oh, those are cool ways for me to generate revenue. I don't have to pay it back. Yeah, but those are not the best ways, because then grants, I don't know if you're familiar, if you've received grants, they usually have stipulations. They tell you what you can and cannot do with the money. You can pay this, but you cannot pay that. So you want to make sure that you're not over relying on a single funding source, that short-term thinking and financial planning is not happening, because then short-term thinking is what seems to be happening with Eric here. They're not thinking long-term. They're thinking short-term. And when they need the funding for a certain activity, that's when they're like rushing and telling Eric, oh, we need this, but that's not enough time. Nobody planned for it, because then he's working part-time and nobody planned with the existing resources, because Eric is a resource. Because if you think about capacity, he is a resource for the organization that they're not leveraging to the max. Okay, plan accordingly, because then if he's working part-time, this event is happening in October, how many work hours are going to be necessary to generate this revenue? How much time do we need to raise these funds? How much time does he need to complete his work? When does he need to start this work? So all of these things need to happen. That's why I'm a big proponent of leaders like expanding their knowledge. Look into project management. Because if you don't have a project manager on board, go on Coursera, do the Google project management course, learn about these things, because if you had these skills, then you would have been able to manage your team's resources and your staff better. Because then, Eric, you wouldn't be put in a situation where you were trying to raise the funds in a couple of weeks, I don't know how long, but you wouldn't be put in that situation. So that's why I said let's circle back on that, because there is a way to circumvent that. It just needs planning. Hey, Alicia. So it really takes planning for situations like this. So short-term thinking, that's one way to get off the fundraising struggle bus. Now, another way is you shouldn't neglect to build relationships with donors. You never know who's gonna be a donor. Because you may think this person here is not financially well, you're not going to care about this person. Oh, she's old, she doesn't need this. But then later on, something happens, she leaves her assets to your organization. You don't know. Build relationships with your donors, with community members, with anybody you care for, your organization cares for. The reason for that, because you're doing work for the community, but you're not leading with your heart. Because I really want you to think about that, because a lot of nonprofit organizations think they're leading with their hearts, but they're not. Because you're like, oh, we don't have the funds, we don't have this, we don't have that. You're stressing out about the work that you're doing, but you're not doing the work that you need to do. You're not building relationships with people you need to build relationships with. Do you know the people on the other side? I'll think of a street in Sac on Howe Avenue. Are you thinking of the people on Arden? Are you thinking of the people on, like, think of a street, and like, I think almost city has a MLK Boulevard. Okay. Are you thinking of the people on that side of the city? Like, are you building relationships with them? Because don't neglect to build relationships with donors, because when push comes to shove, it's the people that you're serving and that you're building relationships with that are going to come through for your organization. And the other issue, the other thing that's going to help you get off the fundraising struggle bus is your failure to communicate your impact effectively. Now, help in fundraising, Larry, I saw that. So a lot of nonprofits may be talking about, oh, I can't raise the funds, but are you communicating your impact effectively right now? Are you showing your impact yet? Like, what are you guys doing? Like, Halima, I know you shared that you have 40 students, right? Because are you guys talking about that? Are you sharing this stuff? Like, I know, like, in terms of media release, you may not have that. Share stories. Like, if you can't share people's faces, share the stories. This person said XYZ. Like, it doesn't have to be the full name. It can just be an initial. Start sharing stories every now and then so people can see the impact, because community members relate to stories. So you need to be able to communicate the impact that you're having effectively. So fundraising is not an issue when push comes to shove. And that goes for every industry when it comes to nonprofits. That comes with environmental issues, animal care, nonprofit organization, homeless, veteran organizations, all of those. Like, relationships matter. The way you communicate your impact and the way you plan matters.
Okay.
Now,
I have a question, if there's time for it.
we're gonna have time, Eric. Don't
Okay.
worry. We're gonna have time, because I'm gonna leave about 15 minutes at the end so we can just do Q&A, because then I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna answer questions from everybody and just one question from everyone. All right. So the first case study that I wanted to bring up was the single source failure. Now, there's a case study in Brian K. Keeler's dissertation. He examined nonprofits in Southern California, and one of them, he did not want to name it, right? That nonprofit was struggling due to over-reliance on government grants. Now, when this funding was actually cut, the organization had to face financial instability. And if I remember correctly, I think I put notes on that, they actually had to like lay off a lot of their staff. So that's a huge issue, because then oftentimes organizations end up having to do that. So you have to be very careful on not relying on a single funding source, because that happens more often than you think. Like, you'll see organizations, like, they hire people to do the work, and 3 months later, they're like, we got to let you go. Because then they hired you because they had a grant contract, right? Like, they probably got $80,000, $300,000. A lot of people think $300,000 is a lot, but maybe 200 is for like just 3 people for 5 months. Because then if you look at a budget template, it's not a lot of money if you have staff. So you really have to know your numbers and do the numbers. That's why, like, a lot of times when I tell people, like, it's chump change when you're looking at people you have to pay, because then you really have to think about, okay, Eric, let's say what you'll accept in terms of annual salary. Let's say the minimum you'll accept is $65K, right? Alicia, I'll just use you as an example because your name is popping up. Alicia, like, the minimum you'll accept is 85. 65 and 85, that's already 150. 150 for the year. Larry, you will not accept anything lower than 100. That's already 250. The grant is 300, and they say that the grant cannot be 25%. Like, 25% of the grant cannot be for salaries. You have to do the math. That means you have to get like the rest of the salaries somewhere else. Because oftentimes a lot of people are not thinking about that. If you're over relying on a single source of revenue, there are potential issues that are going to come up. That's why it's so important to diversify revenue. That's what we're going to talk about today. I hope that made sense. So the first thing you'll learn today, the psychology of donors. The second thing you learn is diversified funding strategy. The third, building sustainable relationships. All right. Now, real success in nonprofits, like, let's be honest, it's going to come from having tailored strategies and meaningful community engagements. It's not just about the grant applications in your donors list, because then a combination of engagement, relationships, and all the fundraising activities that you're doing, that's what's going to support the nonprofit. It's not really just one or the other. It's like a combination, because I strongly believe, in my professional opinion, if you do not have those relationships and those partnerships and all these fundraising activities happening, your nonprofit's in trouble. Because then if you have those relationships and let's say you throw a special event, you have a gala and whatnot, guess what? You can tap in, hey, I'm having this event. I need you to pull up. Can you also share this so your friends can buy tickets? So relationships are very important in nonprofits. And as the executive director, the leader, the board member, that is your role. You have to build that network and put that hat on so you're generating revenue to support the activities and really helping build the capacity of the organization. Because if the organization is in failure mode, you have to think about what's happening to you then. All right, so in terms of psychology of donors, what do donors want? Oftentimes, one thing that's been happening is that a lot of people treat donors like just transactions, and donors do not want that. Donors are getting fed up with it. You may see a decrease in donorship where people don't want to donate to nonprofits anymore, or people are saying, hey, I don't want my donation to go towards operational or like salaries and stuff like that. You just wasting my money and things like that. So you have to be very cognizant of what donors want and give it to them on the front end so you don't have issues on the back end. So what they want is to be able to see tangible impact from their contributions. That's why it's very important for you to continuously share stories of what's happening within your organization, because when you do that, what happens with your nonprofit organization is that donors that go on your page, they see the impact that you're having. They see these stories and they're able to connect and want to contribute, because people want to feel valuable. They want to connect. So you have to give them a reason to want to connect with you by making sure that you are sharing the impact that you're having in your community. So you should share those stories. And the other thing that these donors are looking for are long-term partnerships, not one-time transactions. Because just because they donated $25 here, that's not the end of the relationship, because you'll be surprised. Some people, if you reach out to them after they donate and you ask them how they are, they will ask you what you want because they're not used to that. So I want you to really go outside of yourself and surprise them. Really don't make it transactional. Make it more relationship based. Build a relationship with your donors so you can extend the life of the donorship here. Because your goal here is to ensure that your nonprofit is continuously funded. And the way to do that is making sure that your donors feel invested and that they feel like your nonprofit and your mission is something they value and support, not something that you're taking advantage of and using them because they gave you money. So make it more like relationship based and not transactional. And another thing they're looking for is innovative approaches to solving the community issues. Now, this one sounds so far-fetched and so cliche, But honestly, everybody's so used to seeing like the same thing. Oh, we're doing a class on financial literacy. How many of you have seen a class on financial literacy? You've never seen a class on financial literacy or nonprofits hosting a class on financial literacy?
You know what's crazy? Normally, like for example, like my master's program at USF, when it came to that, they prioritized the how to actually do the budgets, but not necessarily how to get that money in the first place. They teach you how to manage it, how to do the numbers, how to crunch it properly, make sure that you have enough for the activities, but they never really tell you this is the bottom line when you're actually pulling in the money.
So that's why I'm talking about innovative. And Alicia said she has attended several. So financial literacy, there's a lot of them, but there are not a lot of like organizations thinking about innovative ways to capture the donor's attention. Like, what is this nonprofit doing differently than the other one? Like, are they hosting a concert, a benefit concert, somebody that I like? Or, you know, are they doing, I would say, is it a beer pong contest? Whatever it is, like, we have to think about like creative ways that donors want to be engaged. Because I don't know, like, if you guys are familiar with that term, we are living in a time where there's going to be a huge wealth transfer because there's a generation that's leaving and transferring their wealth to the younger generation. And that younger generation is going to need to be tapped into in a way that's different than their parents and grandparents. So we need to think about ways that engage them differently than their parents and grandparents. So, because the way what may be attractive to me may be different than my mom. Because for me, what's attractive to me, it's not the platitudes. Don't sugarcoat it. Give it to me straight. But my mom, she needs to be pacified. I'm not that way. So we have to think about our audience. So think about ways that you can solve the community's issues that your donors actually want. And also clear communication and transparency. Because then everybody's looking for that now. And because we live in a time where trust is very scarce. So we need to be very clear and transparent when we're trying to get something. So if you're looking for a donation, you better tell them you're looking for a donation. Okay, don't lie about it. Oh, I want to check on you. Like, hey, I'm looking for a donation. I would appreciate it if you could support us. We're trying to do X, Y, Z. Because then people don't like being bamboozled into doing something or being being made to feel guilty. I don't know if you remember the commercial of the pets that were dying or the children in Africa on TV. Like those commercials, I loathe those commercials. I did not like watching them because they were designed to make people feel guilty into giving. Like that's very I'm sorry. I could see right through it and I didn't like it. Okay. Oh, here we go. Now, let me see. Now, another case study I came up, just to give you an example, was diversifying. When you diversify what it does for your nonprofit organization. Now, there's Girls on the Run, Sierras. That's a successful example of a nonprofit that was able to diversify its funding sources. Now, they used to be reliant on a few major sources, and they began diversifying their income in 2017 through various fundraising campaigns, which included expanding individual donation and corporate sponsorships. Who's familiar with the term corporate sponsorships? Okay. Anybody else, or do you need me to go over what that is? All right. So this is so Larry corporate sponsorships, some corporations, some businesses, they actually sponsor organizations, nonprofit organizations. So I'll give you an example. There is a utility company, I'm not going to use the name, that our nonprofit sought sponsorship from, because we were doing a project and it aligned with their mission and their values. And we asked them to sponsor because the project we were putting together was over $10,000 and we didn't want to foot the bill. We asked them to sponsor it. They said yes. So some corporations will sponsor projects. Either they will pay for it, or if you have an event you're putting together, maybe they will sponsor and give you financial funding sources. They'll give in-kind donation, like grocery stores. Some of them have sponsorships. Will they sponsor an organization? They will give money or food or groceries or even cater. So corporate sponsorship is when a business or corporation sponsors organizations. They'll sponsor it. Does that answer your question, Mary? All right. You're welcome. All right, so crafting a diversified funding strategy. Now, you have to start with a compelling mission and vision. That's why sometimes you have to start from jump. When you are filing for your nonprofit, it's so important that your mission and your vision make sense at the beginning, because sometimes you have to edit it. Because I've read some missions that they were lackluster. Like I read them, I'm like, what does that mean? Because then some missions and some visions, they're like, if people read them, they don't understand what you do, or they're very generic. Okay, so make your mission and your vision very compelling so nobody has a doubt what it is that you do, and it's very unique. So it's like a unique value proposition. I don't know if you've heard that term in business. Like, you have to make your mission very unique so it stands out, because I didn't put that statistic on there, but you have to think about how many nonprofits exist in the US already. Okay, and you have to do your homework. You have to think about the, I don't like using the word competitors in your area, but what other organizations are doing similar work than you in your area, because your mission has to be unique in a way where it doesn't compete with anybody, okay? And when you're crafting your strategy, you have to be able to identify multiple potential revenue streams, not just one. And you have to tailor your approach for each funding source. And your mix, it has to be short-term and long-term funding. So when you think about it, short-term funding, are you doing a crowdfunding campaign to fund an activity, like a project, like whatever it is? Like, is that short-term? Are you doing long-term, where it's a year campaign to fund maybe next year's salaries or whatever it is? So you have to like create that healthy mix so you're not scrambling next year or by the end of the year to generate the revenues to keep the lights on. Now, the other thing, effective fundraising strategies, lack of planning and strategic foresights will be your worst enemies, because if you do not plan, and Eric, I told you that earlier, if you don't plan ahead of time, your organization will be in trouble. So you have to take the time to like plan out what resources are going to be needed to generate the revenue you're trying to get, what time spent is going to be necessary, and plan that out. I'll give you a perfect example. I have a grant that I have to submit due on the 30th. I was working on it before this call. The only reason I'm still working on it, there's only 4 questions. So I kind of planned it out. The 28th, submitted today. There's another one due on the 18th, another one due on the 22nd. So you have to block your schedule and figure out, okay, what do I have time for? What can I do here? I have an event I need to do. When does this event need to be? How much time do I need? The next event we're putting together is not going to be until February because we need time to plan it out because we have other things that we're doing. So I really want you to think in that sense, like, can I do something on the fly? Because every time I do something on the fly, does it work? Okay, so really start thinking about these things.
I think what sometimes your organization will forget sometimes at the end of the day, you're a professional, and if they're not as equally invested in giving you the resources to pull through with the fundraising, they're only doing it to themselves when you end up not coming through with any kind of fundraising. They didn't support you as a professional, and they didn't respect your timeline enough to make sure that they were responding to you the same way they need you to respond to them.
I'm going to put my coach hat on, Eric, and tell you that's where I want you to put your best foot forward and be very clear and express that. Because you have to be able to express that. Even if you're an executive director to your board, be like, if this is what you want me to move forward with, these are the resources I have. This is what I'm capable of doing. Like with the time allotted, this is not going to be possible. Do you want me to move forward? Or do you want me to push the date so we can be successful? Because then you have to be able to maneuver around this, because it's either they set you up for, well, they set themselves up for failure because it's not you at this point, or they set themselves up for success. So you have to make sure you put all the facts down. Hey, this is how much time we need. These are the resources we have. This is what we can do. What's the next step? Okay. Now, any questions before I move on to this diagram here? All right, y'all. So revenue sources for nonprofits. So this is a big one. Now, like I said, a lot of people think revenue for nonprofits consists of donations and grants, but there's so much more included in the way that nonprofits can generate revenue. So it includes grants, contracts, donations, fees for service, and there are other. I actually have notes on this because I had a list of 20 ways that you can generate revenue as a nonprofit that I put, but for some reason it's not pulling up when I put Canva like this on my computer. Let me open it on my phone, because then you need this information, because I put this together just for you when I put those notes down. All right. So 20 ways. So for grants, there are government grants, federal, state, and local grants. There are private foundation grants. So you have to be mindful of that. There are corporate foundation grants. So they're different as well. There are individual donations. So you can get one-time donations. You can get recurring monthly donations. So if you have like something like DonorBox, Zeffy, or GiveButter set up, you can set up an option where people can opt in to give on a recurring monthly basis or biweekly, depending what the options are. There's major gifts, right? There's planned giving or bequest, because then one way that planned giving works, you can ask people to sign a commitment card. Because I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, because then I've seen that in churches. Commit to give $500, and then they reach back out and ask for it. Okay. Fundraising event, galas, dinners, auctions, silent auction, live auctions, online auctions, walks, runs, athletic events, concerts, performances. So if you have friends that have bands, ask them to host a performance, and the proceeds can go towards your nonprofit. If they run it as a business, that can be a charitable contribution. It's tax deductible. They can, make it sound appealing to them. Whoever you're approaching, tell them that if they donate XYZ, because a lot of folks have a tendency to not think about that aspect when reaching out to professionals to support their events. Hey, we want to collaborate. We would love your support. Alicia, I see your question. I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to read it in detail so I can make sure I understand. So ask them if they'll be able to donate their performance or their expertise to help you raise funds. So Alicia said, do commitments include deadlines for the funds to be deposited, or is that pledges? So for commitments, I would put a deadline, to be honest. I would be like, so if I create commitment cards or pledge cards, I would put a deadline on it. Be like, I would, I pledge or commit to donate XYZ to the name of your organization by July 30th. And put a small font, I agree to be contacted by XYZ, and just reach out. So other ways, corporate partnerships. So we were talking about sponsorships, Larry. Sponsorships, cause-related marketing, because then they can promote your cause. Because oftentimes there are some corporations, they will promote what you do to their audience. So cause-related marketing. Hey, this organization does this work. You know, please donate to their cause. Okay. Or employee matching gift programs. That's a corporate partnership. Because there's a way, like if you get donations, oftentimes the people they work for, they will actually match their donations. But if you have some platforms, you're the one who actually has to chase that. There are some platforms that will do it for you. And that one's a lot of work. Not a lot of people go for it. Some people will. But that's a way to generate revenue, is the matching programs. And membership programs, annual membership, tiered membership levels with benefits. So maybe you create memberships. Like if you are a member of this nonprofit, you get access to our galas or dinner or shout out, or you're on our flyers as a sponsor, or you get to speak at our events, whatever it is, give them benefits. Fee for service activities. You can have program fees. So if you have programs like workshops, trainings, whatever it is, program fees, consultation or training services, your expertise. I want you to start thinking about what expertise you have, knowledge, skills, and expertise within your nonprofit organization that align with your mission that you can offer for a fee. Offer your expertise, because you can charge people. Because just because you're a nonprofit does not mean you cannot charge for your skills. Charge a fee, and that can be revenue for the nonprofit. That's just revenue to fund the nonprofit activities. Research or data analysis services. Now, for the fees for service, I will put a disclosure before I finish. Please check with your lawyer if whatever services you're referring is legal and will take your tax exempt status away, because I do not control what services you're going to offer. So I'm going to put that disclosure right here. All right. And can you give examples? I struggle with understanding what we can charge for. So as long as you charge for services that align. Alicia, give me some background. What does your nonprofit do? Let me think out of the box here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we benefit homeless women with children.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a 5-tier program, which includes mental health advocacy, financial literacy, workforce development, crisis intervention, nutrition services, and getting them ready for home ownership. So any one of the programs we could individually raise funds under. So that's why I was asking about like what services we could charge for. I know in our nutritional program, we do community gardens. So those memberships, we can charge for that, but that's not really a service, right?
You made my heart smile, because then all of those you can charge for, but not to your audience. Because then
Okay.
you know how businesses go online and charge people for the services?
Yes.
Charge people that are not in your audience for these services.
Okay. So I could charge for like the financial literacy part?
Yeah,
Like,
go to businesses, like even go to churches. Be like, or not churches, go to certain businesses or schools. Be like, hey, we want to offer financial literacy classes to your parents. You know, can we start a contract? See if you can generate a contract with certain schools or certain districts or whatnot to offer classes, because then that can be a fee for service. See if you can generate contracts with certain businesses to offer these classes to their population.
Okay. Okay. I understand that, but I thought we had to donate those services if we did that. So that helps me understand it better.
To your people, you do.
Yeah, to my people. Yeah, that's in our
Mhm.
program. Yes.
See
Okay.
if you can generate a contract to offer it to other people. And if you're offering it, because then to keep your heart at peace, because then I don't like the federal government, right,
Mhm.
Alicia? And for some reason, it's like they're still unclear on what you can or cannot do
Right, they
sometimes,
are.
on what you can and cannot do sometimes. And sometimes you need an attorney to speak jargon. So what I'm gonna say here, it's like literally try to get contracts with other businesses. You can get
Okay.
clients also to charge fees for the service, but as long as they're not part of your ideal audience, like the community members that you're supposed to be serving.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome. And I think that was the only question, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And let me see what else we got. So we got research or data analysis services. So if you got any research people watching this replay, yes, you can charge for data analysis services. So if your organization, that's another one. If your organization has certain skills that another organization does not have, anybody have seen my post about capacity building? Anybody? Go watch my post on capacity building. That is a way to help other organizations with capacity building. Charge them to teach them something. So if you have a skill they do not have, charge them to teach them. Does that make sense? So if you have financial literacy, Alicia, and you guys know how to put budgets together, this organization doesn't, hold a workshop for small businesses, nonprofits. Come learn how to put budgets together.
That's perfect. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, because then that can be a service that you offer to generate revenue for your organization. And another one that organizations sleep on, well, they don't sleep on that one. That one, I see a lot of nonprofits doing that. Product sales, like merchandise related to the mission. One way to do that for free, there are some websites that you can sell shirts like Printify. You don't have to buy inventory. You just design it on the website and people just buy it. So maybe doing a site like Printify or something. I think it's Printify. And like maybe asking people, hey, go buy here, the proceeds go to our organization. Like see which one can match your organization, because those do not cost any overhead, because you don't pay for the shirts beforehand. It's when people order online, the shirts are produced on location and shipped directly to them.
I'm sorry, you said that was Printify? That's what you said?
I think that's what it's called.
I'm gonna look it up. Thank
No,
you. 'Cause
you're welcome.
I was actually gonna do some t-shirts. We decided, I don't know, I think I got this down pat. I have another for-profit. It's herbalist because I have an herbal store.
Mhm.
And what I did is I partnered it with our nonprofit. That's what we do our community gardens with. So the funds for the for-profit goes toward the nonprofit when we do the community gardens. Does that make sense?
The funds for the
Community
for-profit.
gardens, because people buy plot.
Mm-hmm.
And we have corporate sponsorship, like businesses that want to have their name up on the wall. They'll pay for that and they'll donate a plot, but it goes back to the nonprofit.
Have you spoken to a lawyer about that?
They said we can do it it's better to do it as a partnership rather than do it as a subsidiary. That way our
Mhm.
for-profit wouldn't have to go by the bylaws of the nonprofit.
Okay.
They said in our state where we're doing it at is in North Carolina. It's perfectly legal to do it. We just gotta make sure that our partnership agreement spells everything to the T.
Okay. Yeah, as long as you have that like listed, but
Uh-huh.
yes, a lot of people sleep on these partnerships with for-profits, like nonprofits, the local governments, the schools, like definitely like that's why I'm saying you have to seek these partnerships because oftentimes there are contract availabilities there. You're
Okay.
able to generate revenue in these places that you can't because you're stuck thinking grants is the way to generate revenue. No, look for contracts because then you have skills in your organization that you can leverage.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And there was so much more crowdfunding. I know people have heard of that investment income. A lot of people don't think about that. Nonprofits actually can invest in the income from that. They can generate rental income. If you own a building, you can rent and make profit. So you can rent out the facility as long as you have, I think, 51% of it is occupied by you. So you have to sublet, if I remember I think that's what the lender told us. And contracts, we talked about contracts in terms of the services, special events, those people are familiar with, conferences, webinars, workshops, classes, seminars, licensing and royalties. Those are other ones. So if you wrote a book, if you have anything that has licensing and royalties, those cause marketing partnerships, those are another one. Online revenue streams, there's so many ways to generate revenue, okay? So do not get stuck on thinking grants and donations is it, because it's not the only way. Now, I am gonna go a little bit fast because I wanna give everybody 15 minutes. I wanna leave 15 minutes at the end so I can answer Halima, Eric, anybody's question, okay? So grants shouldn't be your number one source. We talk about reliance, risk of over-reliance on grants and the importance of multiple funding sources. So individual donation, events, corporate sponsorships, fee for service and things like that. Building sustainable financial model is very important. And the next thing, one of the last things I had for you is an interactive exercise. So one thing I had here, so everybody's gonna participate. Larry, I'm gonna need you like full hands on deck here. The original funding strategy I have here, our nonprofit organization, this is a fake organization, okay? Our nonprofit organization, Community Helpers, aims to raise $100,000 this year to support our programs. We plan to achieve this goal by applying for local government grants, hosting an annual fundraising gala, sending out quarterly appeal letters to our mailing list, and maintaining our donation page on our website. So this is the original funding strategy. What I'm gonna need everybody to do, right? Because then I done told y'all, this is interactive. I'm gonna need you to improve this strategy. So I want you to rewrite the strategy, make it more diverse and compelling. I want you to consider multiple funding sources, clear impact metrics, and innovative approaches to this strategy and long-term sustainability. We're gonna have 3 to 5 minutes. Do you want me to put the original one on so you can think of a better one? Because we're gonna have 3 to 5 minutes. We can do this while we work together or silently, just let me know because I can mute myself and be quiet.
I put in yes, please. I didn't know if you were reading the chat.
Okay, so put it back because I see yes, I like
Yeah,
that.
keep it. Yeah,
Yes.
keep it.
All right, so I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna mute myself. If you need me, if you have a question, just ask me, okay?
Okay. Interactive.
So multiple funding sources, that's what I want you to work on and make sure the impact metrics are clear. All right, so I think we have time for one person to share. Who wants to share what they got?
I can share.
All right, go ahead, Alicia.
Okay, so hopefully my grammar sounds right on this. And I put footprints transitional services will raise our annual goal of 150,000 K in funds, which will aid single mothers who are experiencing homelessness transition into stable and healthy homes by 1, hosting our annual Hoops for Homeless AAU tournament. 2, collaborating with local small businesses for corporate matching through educational community events.
Wait,
3,
how much through the tournament?
I'm sorry.
How much through the tournament?
Oh, so we put the number for each one. So
Mhm.
the tournament, those tournaments can raise a lot of money. So we're looking at close to maybe 30,000
Okay.
Queen City tournaments that we do here in Charlotte. So those are like maybe close to 30,000 for tickets and candy sales and food
Mhm.
that for that. So should I put for each one the amount?
You can do that after, that's fine, but then usually put the amount of how much your goal is for each, so
Okay.
everybody can be like laser focused on what they should be like gunning towards.
Okay, so the goal here is to make a target for each of.
Yeah, so
Okay.
because then that's why I said like clear impact metrics. Because then like at least give everybody something clear to go for.
Mhm.
So, you know, okay, so we're gonna raise a total of 150. We're gonna focus 5,000 here. We're gonna do it through this. So you had the tournament, Alicia. What else you got?
Collaborating with local small businesses for corporate matching through educational community events. So that's like the financial literacy. We could match with Wells Fargo has a program out here with nonprofits that does that. There's several different churches do it all the time.
Be specific. How many of
Be
them you want? Like, is it classes? Like, be specific as could be with your strategy.
So be specific, like what type of classes they are.
Like, how many classes? Like, when you're gonna do them? Like, how many in the year?
Okay. Okay, so at least 2 every 3 months.
Okay.
That's the estimate. So maybe once a quarter, maybe once a quarter, considering everything else that we have going on. I have to really think about that because I have other things going on too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to, like, our giving, like, we know giving season's coming up. So I don't want to impede on our gala that we have once a year. So those classes would have to be earlier during the year.
Okay. So your gala is part of it. How much on your for your gala?
The gala is usually close to maybe 12,000 because it's a
Okay.
plate dinner.
Okay. And do you also like have grants in there and stuff like that? Do you have like that mix, that healthy mix?
In what? In
Like,
what my other ones that I put in here? Okay, then the party with a purpose,
mm-hmm.
that's one. That's a concert and a party, and then the year-round donation page on our website and on social media.
Okay. All right.
I didn't include grants, interesting enough.
That's okay. Do you even have a grant calendar? I'm curious.
Do I have a what, sweetie?
A grant calendar.
No, I don't have a grant calendar.
Yeah, because then one thing, like I know some people don't keep, but it's good to have like a grant calendar because some of them are on a rolling basis. Like every
Right,
year the same one comes out
right.
and like you can research them like, okay, this year we're gonna go for this one. So at least you can plan out in your fundraising strategy which one you're gonna like apply for next year. Maybe you didn't get it this year, but next year you'll apply for it.
Okay,
But
got you.
yeah,
Because I
so
know, like, with the Walmart community grant, I kind of keep track. That's about the only one that I keep track of.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, okay. So I wrote that down in my notes to do a grant calendar.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, and include different ones that align with your mission. Like do some research to see, like find capacity building grants
you.
in Charlotte, North Carolina, that area that align with your mission, that fund your purpose, and see if there's anything. Because I know some areas they don't have a lot of grants.
Oh, there's a lot of grants in North Carolina.
Okay, so you guys have a lot
We're
of grants.
like, we're on sam.gov too.
Okay, good. Yeah, just keep track of what's happening because then, yeah, if you have a grant calendar, maybe you can't apply for them this year, but at least you can prepare for the next cycle.
That makes sense. Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
you're welcome. All right, so I know we're short on time, so let's keep it pushing because I want to make sure everybody has time. So improve strategy, everybody started doing that. So I'm going to give you an example of what a diversified funding strategy should look like. So you have like example here on nonprofit organization community helpers. Again, it's a fake nonprofit organization, okay? It aims to raise 150,000 this year to support and expand our programs. We plan to achieve this goal through a diversified approach that balances traditional funding with innovative revenue generating strategies. We have grants and institutional funding, so it was 50,000 for those, and it broke it down between local government grants, about 30,000, and again, fake names, Pursue Foundation grants, align with our mission. So if you have a grant calendar, it's easy to identify the amount for each. So that's why those are just plugins, but that will give you an example, Alicia. If you have a grant calendar and you have the amounts, you can just plug those in. Now, the next thing is like individual giving. So let's say they focus on that as well. 40,000 for individual giving. You have the fundraising gala that can help raise $20,000. Monthly giving program. They have community champions. They can raise $10,000 for the whole year using that. They have targeted online crowdfunding campaigns for specific projects. Remember, long-term and short-term. So specific projects, they have crowdfunding, because then crowdfunding, let's say, hey, we want to host this event, this major event, this class, this workshop, we need XYZ money. And then everybody shares it online, please fund this. Have you ever seen on Facebook, oh, it's my birthday, share this with this nonprofit? So that's kind of an example of online crowdfunding sort kind of thing. Optimize your website's donation page and implement a year-end appeal. So you're telling people go on your website and donate. So $40,000 just through individual giving. Corporate sponsorship, so community helper sponsorship program, local businesses, going to local businesses for sponsorship that you can secure, like they secured over 15,000 with that. Again, this is an example, it's not real. Secure in-kind donation of goods and services, so 10,000. It is possible though if you have the relationships. Earn income strategies. So you're developing and selling mission-related products. So let's say you go on Pernify and you're selling branded merchandise. Let's say you have something that you design and put on Pernify and you advertise it when you go to events. Like maybe you put it on and it's very catchy, like Catch Me Next Door or whatever, like a shirt, and people like, oh, I like this. Oh, go to our store on Etsy and buy this. The proceeds go to us. And people just go on Etsy and purchase it. That goes to you, right? Offer fee-based training, like we were talking about, Alicia. Events, community engagement, your strategy, that's 20,000. So the fun, walk, the run, workshops, webinars, all of those things, peer-to-peer fundraising. Now, the thing here is making sure that you diversify it, your funding sources, and implement the strategies. You're creating a sustainable financial model where you're not depending on just one funding sources and like really tying the foot of your organization down where you can't do anything. Okay, so fundraising strategies fail because they lack clear organizational goals. You fail to diversify your funding sources. There's poor donor relationship management, because when you have donors, relationship management is very important. So there's somebody that needs to make sure they reach out to donors and build a relationship with them and continue maintaining that relationship. Because statistics show that like when one person donates, only 20% of donors stay and keep donating. That's like very low. So you need to maintain donor relationship to ensure that they come back, right? They really care about your cause. And there's ineffective communication of your impact, and there's an inability to adapt to changing circumstances. I've met so many nonprofits that don't like change, and that really is a problem. So building sustainable relationships, that's very important. We talked about that. Treat donors as partners in your mission. You have to communicate your impacts and your needs, and you have to offer multiple ways for supporters to engage, show appreciation, and beyond the thank you note. So put them on the website, put them on the flyers. You have to brag on them because it goes a long way. Send them flowers, send them something beyond just a card saying thank you. Okay, show them that you care. Now, you're creating an opportunity for impact, because then your mindset, we talked about your mindset having to change. You're creating an opportunity for impact. You're not asking for charity. So you need to change that mindset and really embody that because every interaction that you have is going to be a chance for you to learn and grow. So you have to fail fast and keep going. Like it's the same in business. In this way, like people are going to say no, just take the no's, keep going, okay? Your mission is going to deserve sustainable and diverse funding, and that's why I want you to work hard on making sure that you build a diversified fundraising strategy. And I don't know why I deleted that, but yeah, I don't even know what that said, but I think my kid deleted that. Relationships, that's what it was. Relationships are at the core of fundraising. Yes. So that goes to show you I was fighting with my kid when I was doing this PowerPoint. I have a 2-year-old as well. So now you know. Now, improving your fundraising strategy, understanding each funding source's priorities. You have to understand that so you can improve your funding strategy. You have to craft compelling narratives for your different audiences and demonstrate measurable outcomes and impacts. And you have to continuously adapt and refine your approach. If you don't do that, your fundraising strategy is going to end up falling flat because times are changing. We're living in a time, again, trust is a big commodity, right? If you do not improve your fundraising strategy, it's going to be hard for you to capture the heart of your donors and make sense to people. So I really want you to envision yourself where this could be you, right? These are different things that I've worked on, I've helped people with, and I just wanted to show you, like sponsorships. Larry, I talk about sponsorships. So this is an opportunity. One of our clients was able to get $9,800 sponsored for a project here. Now, this was a grant. This one is 163 in grants. So sponsorship grants. And this was a business, not even a nonprofit, a business. And they were selling tickets over 200% in sales. Just changing the way they told stories to get people to buy tickets. So I really want you to see yourself as being able to generate the revenue you're trying to generate for your nonprofit, because it is not as far-fetched as you think. It's just a matter of looking at it differently than you usually do. Now, there needs to be a shift where you say bye to just depending on grants to support operations and not really a lot of donations coming in and short-term financial thinking, and really saying hello to diversified funding sources, sustainable financial planning, and building donor relationships, because those are what are important. So those are the shifts I want to happen with you. Now, before I move on to the next step, I'm going to talk about ways I'm helping my client, because I do offer a fundraising strategy session, which I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to invite you after the Q&A, because we're going to do Q&A right now, but I'm going to invite you after the Q&A. If you want to stay and hear about the fundraising strategy sessions, to stay behind and hear about it, but we're going to do the Q&A now because we're short on time. So, yep. We're going to start with, I know the first question I have on here was, I know Halima was the first one that dropped hers. Lack of resources and limited donors. That was your biggest funding challenge with your nonprofit. So lack of resources and limited donors. I know you said you're in Kenya, right?
I'm in Chicago, but yeah, it will be international. So I will buy schools based in Kenya, refugee camp.
Okay, and you didn't start a 501c3 here yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, do me a favor. Are you planning to start it soon?
Yes, so I have my website set up. So my next plan is to, and also the Facebook page and everything. So yeah, that's my next step.
Okay. Can you do me a favor, Halima? I am going to drop my link in the chat soon. Can you book a complimentary consultation with me so we can talk a little bit more about what next steps are for you once you make that happen? Because then I think it would be beneficial for us to have a conversation once you have that in place into what that looks like to kind of seek the resources that you need and what you're planning to do post, you know, like starting the nonprofit in Illinois.
Sure.
Okay.
I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to put that in the chat in a minute. and Eric getting the team on the same page with fundraising efforts within the limited time. Now, I know we talked a little bit about making sure we plan ahead of time. Now, did you want me to elaborate on that? Eric, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Did you want me to elaborate on the part where we plan a little bit more, or like, because then I know we talked about that briefly during the call or during the
Mhm.
masterclass,
Mhm.
where the main issue with the fundraising challenge that you shared
Mhm.
was the lack of planning around the activities that you wanted to do. So
Mhm.
did you understand, or did you want us to go a little bit deeper on that?
No, that explanation was good. I just had a follow-up question.
Okay, what's up?
Okay, so when it comes to partnering to put together, this diverse and sustainable plan to make sure that we have enough funding,
Mm-hmm.
what would your recommendation be if you wanted to implement part of your funding be from membership dues of certain members? Because, for example, we do this for the fraternity whenever we had the sponsorship with El Sol. We had to match part of the event gala funding, and what had to be done was the membership dues. And it typically, especially for undergrad, it's really hard to get those membership dues considering, they're usually college students and they usually don't have as much to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Now, turning that and taking it to an organization like Avenue Tampa, where it's a much larger organization, a lot more funding needed, how would you recommend going about making a membership due and pitching it to make sure it actually gets support? Because you can have a membership due and they'll just say, never mind, I don't want to join.
Well, you have to think about if it makes sense for the
Mhm.
organization. Like in terms of your audience, do you have the audience, the community to actually have a membership? Because then how many people are already in your audience? Do you have just 50 people? Because then even for me right now, my audience consists of 300 people. I would need about 3,000, 10,000 people in my audience before I even consider starting a membership, because memberships, you need volume. Do you have the volume yet?
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you guys don't have the volume, it might not be the best model. You have to think of another model, revenue model, that works best for your organization. Because then is it that you need to work on the outreach, on the capacity of Avenue Tampa to like build recognition and outreach around the organization so you can have the audience and build the membership, and maybe introduce the membership after? Because then you have to think about what needs to happen in the sequential order.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because then, yeah, think about it strategically. Like start doing the work of what you need to like introduce before it happens. What is the definition of my audience? Is it based on my email list? Who it is you serve. That's what I mean by your audience. Who it is you serve. Does that make sense, Alicia?
I lost the screen, but yeah, it makes sense. When you say, okay, so you said you have like three, it's based on all the people that are enrolled in your program now. Is that what you're saying?
What are you referring to?
You said when your audience, those who you serve. So are those like people that you actually are enrolled in your program? Is that what you mean by who you serve?
Okay, like when I say in your audience and who you serve. So let's say Avenue Tampa, I'm not sure what Avenue Tampa does, right? So let's say let me just give a random, like community helpers is supposed to help the community provide food and stuff like that. And you are serving food to about like 300 people per week. And you have about 100 people in your network. But you also have to think about external factors too. Do these people, can they afford a membership?
Okay. So I'm trying to think of how to put a number on my audience. And I thought if I'm just talking about just the people I serve, that changes the number versus people that are in my network. My network, I have a pretty decent sized network.
Mm-hmm.
The people in my network would be able to afford the membership, but the people that I serve more than likely wouldn't, because I deal with homeless people.
Okay, so then you would have to think about the purpose of your membership. That's another thing. So
Okay.
Eric, you too.
Okay.
Think about the purpose of your membership. Is it a membership to support, in your case, Alicia, feeding these communities? Is the membership to provide, like, let's say, 5 days worth of food to one person, and then like the person gets a shout out on the website? Like, what is it? What is the value that they're getting from being a member? Like, what are
Well,
they paying
the
for?
community gardens, they get access to, because it's herbalist,
Mm-hmm.
they get access to herbal education. If they have a business, then they get the, like I said, the name on the wall but their membership fees are going to actually build the gardens for like whatever we don't get donated as far as like the lumber, the seedlings. That's what their membership goes towards.
So in your case, you already have a membership, right, with your business? Because then I know you have your
Yeah, but I
business.
was trying to think if I should run it underneath the nonprofit instead of doing it under the for-profit.
Is it working right now?
Yeah, it's working right now, but like when I run it under the for-profit, I was trying to expand it out to get more of the community involved rather than just herbalists. Does that make sense? Because the
Yeah.
for-profit is just for herbalists. It's like an association of herbalists that we learn together, we teach together, and we build these gardens, but I partner with our nonprofit to do so.
Okay, so how about creating a model for the nonprofit where members actually, like, maybe it's a cheaper membership where they get access to classes and maybe a box of whatever produce, or I don't know
Okay.
if that's the case, like once a month or whatever it is. Like, think of a model that would benefit them and also empower them.
Okay, that'll work. I apologize, Eric. I didn't mean to interrupt your question. Thank you.
You're
No, you're
welcome.
good. No, you're good. This is it was very helpful anyway to hear what your question was.
Yeah, and Eric, does that help? Because in Avenue Tampa, would that assist as well, kind of like hearing that information and kind of figuring that out?
It'll definitely be easier to push to get certain things that I need in order for a grant application to go through.
Okay.
Uh, the main thing is when it comes to budgets and fundraising, outside of undergrad, this is really the first time it's been put like on my plate to search for the money. Or while I did do it before, it was a much smaller scale.
Yeah. And now you have to do it on a larger scale for Avenue Tampa. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. I definitely hear that. Yeah, I hear that. And then hopefully you can catch me again at another masterclass so we can talk and kind of like debrief, or on another platform or way to talk about this. But I know
Absolutely. I'll be
we're
hopping on more.
good. And I know we're almost out of, well, we're out of time. So I'm going to quickly like share this. Again, you are welcome to leave if you cannot stay. So I'm going to say I appreciate all of you for being here. But again, if you want to stay behind and hear about the fundraising strategy session, because these strategy sessions are 90 minutes, and I'm going to talk about what you get and what benefits they have for you and your organization. So if you want to stay behind and hear a little bit more about it, stay behind. And Halima, I posted the link for my website, my stand store, so you can book a complimentary consultation with me so we can talk a little bit more too. All right. So what I want to talk about today is an invitation to the fundraising strategy session. What it is, it's a service where we assess your current fundraising efforts, identify untapped financial opportunities, and we work on developing diverse and sustainable funding mix, just like we did with the exercise that we worked on earlier. Now, not only that, we focus on community engagement strategies, because I throw that in as a bonus because that's my jam and that's one thing I love, is community engagement strategies that you might have slept on so you can improve recognition that can foster stronger donor relationships. Now, this invitation is for nonprofits that are trapped in the grant to grant cycle or struggling to retain donors and that want to diversify their funding sources and increase donor engagement. So what you'll get in this strategy session is 90 minutes, a one-on-one customized fundraising plan, where we're going to outline, you're going to get an outline plan, you get immediate action steps, so you can boost your fundraising, and follow-up emails with the recording, because then the session's going to be recorded. You're going to get that with session notes and resources and 14-day follow-up email support for any implementation questions. So the current price of the fundraising strategy session, that's the one I'm promoting today, is $397. The actual price is angel number 777. But the current price is $397 because yesterday I realized I never changed the price. I'm like, I'm not changing it. That's a sign. So that's the price today. So if you want to book one, the link for that is the same link as the complimentary consultation that I posted for Halima. So go ahead and click on that link and definitely book your strategy session as well. And Halima, you are so welcome. Alicia, you're so welcome. And I am glad this was helpful. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here and giving me the time to talk to you about this and helping you out with this. So if you have any questions before I hop off, let me know.